The Houston Texans are taking on the Indianapolis Colts wild card weekend. It's 3 versus 6. It's AFC South football. It's the third time these two teams have played. And if I expect anything from this game, Dylan, I expect a high-scoring affair. I expect a game that's going to go down to the wire because that's exactly what we saw in the first two games. One went into overtime, and then the other one was right down in the fourth quarter. So we have two young stud quarterbacks. We have a lot of exciting defensive players. Darius Leonard for the Colts, J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney for the Texans. This is going to be a very fun game. Dylan, break down what you see from both sides and then give me your prediction for who you think is going to win, the Texans or the Colts.
I'm very excited for this matchup. I always like divisional matchups in the wild card round. You know, these are always very intriguing. We see these teams against each other the most amount of times in the regular season, so we get to get the climax of the third game in the playoffs, which is always very nice. For the Colts, you got Andrew Luck, comeback player of the year. He's leading this team. He's doing very, very good. He's been slinging the rock very well. You saw it in Week 17. He was asked to get that playoff position, and as Captain Andrew Luck does, he got the job done and got the victory against another division rival, the Titans. The running game with Marlon Mack is always very solid. It works well. It wasn't great. It wasn't very useful in Week 17, but that wasn't the point. He's still a very good running back, and they use him and Hines as well. The receiver group, T.Y. Hilton's always going to be a big-time threat. You got Inman, and you got Eric Ebron, who knows how to score touchdowns. And as Kevole is tweeting us right now, he wants to get in. So you got that on the offensive side. The defensive side, you said it in our live stream last week, the defensive line has been pretty underrated, all things considered. With no big-name talent, there are still good things to like about them, and they've been able to hold their ground. And the linebacker, Darius Leonard, has been tremendous. So I've been liking what the Colts are bringing to me, especially with their long stretch of good production. I think they're 9-1 in their last 10 games, so that's definitely the way to go into the playoffs. For the Texans, you've seen what Deshaun Watson can do. You know he's doing very well. Lamar Miller has actually been pretty underrated, I would say, pretty decent overall. And DeAndre Hopkins, who's stopping that man? He didn't even have a drop. He had 115 catches, I believe, and no drops this year, which is huge production. And then defensively, all those big guys up front is going to create a heck of a matchup for the Colts. I'm actually picking the Colts. I'm picking the 6th seed Colts to beat the Texans in an upset. The biggest thing about the Texans this season was, are they facing tough competition? Are they able to win these big games and go out there and finish the job? And honestly, against the best teams that they played, I don't think they really did it. The Eagles in Week 15, when they could have clinched their division, they weren't able to get that win. I believe it was Week 16, sorry. Week 16, they could have gotten that division, could have gotten that there. There's other games where I was like, this should be a win for them. Another matchup with the Colts, the second time around, they lost 24-21. They didn't look as hot. They've been able to pick up the wins they needed to win, but they haven't gotten the clutch victories to solidify me as a number 1 team here. So although I like what the Texans bring, I think the Colts, led by Andrew Luck, he wants to make another statement, realize get rid of all the injury talk from last year and all the criticism this way because of his great year in the regular season. He's going to continue that way in the playoffs. I think he's going to get a solid upset victory against the Texans.
All right, so I get what you're saying. The Colts, they're a team that's hot. The Texans, a team that maybe some people overrate a little bit, and I think you're going with the hotter hand in Andrew Luck, and I'm also going with the Indianapolis Colts, and there are a few reasons why. I think this game to me, even before we get into the matchup, this game to me, Dylan, I'll have my closest eyes on, and the reason that is because I think this game will completely change the complexion and the entire outlook of the AFC playoffs. Because I think if the Texans beat the Colts and move on, of course they take on the Patriots. The Colts, if they win, they take on the Chiefs. I think depending on the matchups, depending on who wins this game, we'll see a different winner in the AFC conference. That's why I'm going to have very close eyes on who wins this game. Then we continue on, and just getting into this game, Houston is a much better team at home. They're 6-2 at home, but one of those losses, of course, was against the Colts. Both of those games were extremely close, and I think the thing that we saw in both of those games is that the Colts dominated the line of scrimmage. They were just very aggressive on the defensive side. As you said, as I said, the Colts defensive line has dominated in terms of getting sacks on Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, there's that statistic floating out there. No quarterback entering the playoffs has been sacked more in NFL history than Deshaun Watson. And against the Colts sacked him 7 times and 5 times. That's a lot of times to get hit. And if the Colts can get that pressure even in the Texans' home building, that's going to make a difference. And Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton, this combination's been unbelievable. 199 yards, 115 yards for T.Y. Hilton, over 450 yards one game, almost 400 yards the other game, and 6 touchdowns combined for Andrew Luck. I just think when you look at it, the Texans' offense, their offense is very simplistic. It's basically throw it up to DeAndre Hopkins and pray and hope he makes a play. Outside of that, there's no Will Fuller. There's no Demaryius Thomas. Lamar Miller's inconsistent. You don't have a ton of guys to take away if you're a Colts defense. A Colts defense that's #1 in scoring defense since week 7. Not a lot of people know that. If they can shut down DeAndre Hopkins and kind of keep Deshaun Watson in the pocket, get some pressure, I think the Colts can definitely win this game. And I really like Frank Reich. I think he's been one of the coaches of the year. He's brought that third down package from Philadelphia, the #1 third down team last season, to this season with the Colts, #1 third down offense with the Colts. I still don't think the Texans' secondary is great. So I'm going to go with the Colts here. Andrew Luck, I think they're playing well. They're playing well on both sides, not like a typical Colts team that only plays good offense. And I think that's enough to win this game against their rival. And I did predict the score to be 27-23. I think this is a mid-20s game. It's a close game. Don't get me wrong. Watt will make plays. Clowney will make plays. Deshaun Watson will make plays. But when I get past those 3 or 4 or 5 players that are at the top of the list for the Texans, the Colts have better depth and are a better team. I think they're just a little underrated. So I'm going to go with the Colts.
For me, I think I looked at the Colts, and you could argue that there's no experience, but you actually can argue that there is experience because you have Frank Reich that won the Super Bowl. You have Adam Vinatieri that won a Super Bowl.
Multiple Super Bowls.
And I called them the Graybeards. You can see them with the Graybeards. Andrew Luck has won a playoff game. The Houston Texans don't necessarily have that same experience, but I am in the minority, apparently, and picking the Houston Texans to win this game. I just look at the talent for talent. I just don't think the Colts are there yet. It wouldn't surprise me if the Colts necessarily won, but I think that Texans at home with Deshaun Watson, Kiki Kuchi, I think will have a big game. Lamar Miller needs to have a big game, and he's going to be very important. And I think that they're going to have – I think the Colts did a magnificent job holding out Derrick Henry last week, but they also were playing Blaine Gabbert, who missed a lot of throws. Deshaun Watson is not going to miss a lot of those throws that Blaine Gabbert threw at him last week. I just think the Texans at home are going to be a bit of a tougher matchup. The Colts are not there yet, but they are coming. I've got the Texans for this one.
Do you think that a lot of people are overrating the Colts?
No, I don't. Like I've said, you can kind of understand why people are picking the Colts because you look at the Texans schedule, although they've won a lot of games, there hasn't been anything that's really been a statement win. But the game that kind of impressed me was the comeback with Philadelphia, what Deshaun Watson did there. Kind of was the one thing that I was impressed with. I think they can match up with the Colts pretty well. I think it's going to be it can be close, but I think at home Houston's going to win.
All right. So that's our preview for the Texans and the Colts. If you guys enjoyed that, hit the like button and subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL.